Uhuru, brothers and sisters and comrades, this is Omali Shatella. I'm chairman of the African People's Socialist Party and leader of the Uhuru movement and the worldwide African Revolution. Today we're having this discussion at a very extraordinary time. We have characterized this discussion, or we've titled it "The Chaos in the Capitol." The roof is on fire. As you know, that's a line that comes from a hip hop piece that really emerged in the mid 1980s, and every now and then it surfaces as this significant piece. But I think that what we're looking at with what's happening now, what happened on January 6th with the assault on the Capitol, what's going on now is clear evidence of the roof is on fire. That the allegory is really, I think, something that works for this time, this period. And it places us as African people in a situation of having to really come to some kind of conclusions about our lives and our future as a people. I mean, this has always been something that we needed to do, and at different times, of course, and with different degrees of intensity and success, we have been doing that. But here we have a situation where the US president, who, right as we're having this discussion, is facing impeachment charges being filed in the Congress of the United States. They charging him with being responsible for provoking and providing leadership for an actual attack and assault on a seat of the government of the United States. And that's not a little thing, it's a really important thing. And more important than the action that's happening in the Congress today, because as you know, they have impeached him before, and others have been impeached also in the past. But the impeachment process or concept is not the most important thing. The most important thing, of course, is that attack on the Capitol, that a coordinated attack on the Capitol. The extent that these structures were well defined throughout the country that resulted in this attack on the Capitol does not diminish the likelihood, probability, one might say, of a serious element of coordination. And this was a coordination that, even without direct leadership or specific centralized leadership, it was a coordination that clearly pulled into this process numbers of policemen from throughout this country. There's a great likelihood that your local police department, there were figures from your local police department that were involved in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, as there were many. This is something that's not even challenged now. Even people who were guarding, ostensibly on guard to protect the Capitol building, talked about how some people came up and they showed them their badges as they were trying to break in. And they told them that we're doing this for you. So these are cops. And this is something that's really important for us when you talk about that. When you talk about cops, for a number of reasons. One, you're talking about an element of military training that happens in police departments. Police organizations are not Bible clubs. They are military organizations. People can call them paramilitary, call them what you want. They're a military organization. One, increasingly, it is true that more and more of these individuals who are in the police department have come from active duty by the United States government in making war against colonized peoples around the world. You've probably noticed in your communities how the stance and posture of some of these local cops who might even be on traffic duty clearly resembles the stance that and posture that you will see even with special ops forces. This is no longer, in many instances, just that local donut eating sleeping on the job cop. These persons who obviously are there with a certain amount of energy, a certain amount of understanding in terms of military tactics and aggression in your community. And you got to remember that the police organizations throughout this country are outfitted with military equipment. They like to call it surplus. And of course, there was this thing that was passed by the US Congress and supported by most of the Congressional Black Caucus that allowed them to continue. That is to say, the police organizations to continue receiving these weapons from the Pentagon. And you will find them in rural communities, large communities, just huge stashes of military armament. And of course, this armament it gives the Pentagon the ability to violate what should be is general law because the military is not supposed to be involved in policing different communities, but increasingly what the military has been doing is sending these weapons to police organizations throughout this country, and sending and increasingly people who are in the military are leaving the military, coming to your local police department. So we're talking about groups of people who experience a kind of camaraderie from their military training, the relationships they've established with each other around this country, and the politic that has gone along with that, that you will find heavily embedded in the military. So, so they didn't need to have the kind of direct command center to function in the way that these forces appear to have functioned, according to almost everything I continue to read on a regular basis. So, and the fact is that there was obvious evidence of some cops opening gates and allowing these persons to come through, of some cops who were actually seen doing selfies with some of the people who attacked the Capitol. So you were looking at a relatively well coordinated, even if it were not coordinated from a serious kind of top-down program, but that was informed, inflamed that there was something going to happen at the Capitol, and even there were various kinds of social media posts that indicated that the Capitol was going to be attacked. So that's the kind of stuff that was happening. That's the kind of thing that is significant, more significant than the act of the impeachment that we can talk about, you know, why that is occurring and what that means. But there are mobs of white people who are out there. Their existence is something that could have been inferred, if not known directly, much earlier. It is part of a political response that we see happening among white people in this country to the changing conditions of existence, to the changing in the old economic configuration of the world economy that's removing America and moving white people, Europe, from its pre-colonial power, the power that it captured during colonialism and slavery and the rest of it. There is a world that is imperiled by this distress, and we see the capitalists who are ruthless, who are moving jobs from people's ability to live, and they're taking them offshore, so that so much of the economy, much of the economy in this country is based on consumerism, not on anything that's produced inside the country. What's produced is produced usually outside of the country and shipped back into this country for you to buy. And that has been a fundamental transformation in terms of the ability of the white people to work in some of these critical areas. And that lack of economic capacity is something that's driven more and more white people into extreme states that include this period where that's been described as some kind of a death of despair, with this uptick, serious uptick in the deaths of white people in this country, from suicides, from alcoholism, from drug addiction, from various other kinds of things that we're told comes with despair. And this despair, of course, is something that's born out of the inability of white people to have life the way they're accustomed to having that life. And that means one thing, again, is the economy, the assault on the economy. And that's by the capitalists. And the capitalists are the ones who sent all of the productions to much of it to China and other places around the world. So that it meant a serious loss of jobs for white people in this country. That's real, that happened. And that led to a serious transformation of the social relationships existing in the white world. It also led to this political drive that is challenging the heretofore reign of a certain sector of the capitalist class, not of all the capitalists, but a certain sector of the capitalist class, even as these capitalists fight among themselves for the market and which concern is going to be represented by the government. It has usually happened within the defined configuration that's been recognized, political configurations known as the Atlanticist group that stretches not only the United States, but includes Japan and much of Europe. These are the forces under the leadership of the United States for the last 70 years that's controlled the world economy and much of the politics of the world. And that's something that has come under challenge now. Most recently, as more people are taking back their resources, breaking up this fraternity, are certainly challenging the fraternity as more countries are in the process. I'm talking about white countries now of going for themselves. And so this has created this restlessness among the white population. And the white population has not had the benefit of you. You had Garvey, you had Malcolm X, you had the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement, but the white population has been stuck with forces who are like Trump or some other version of Trump. The white population is a population of colonizers. That is to say that they are one pole, one part of a dialectic that exists between oppressed and oppressors. The oppressors are the colonizers, and the white people exist as colonizers. In this country and much of the world, the economy has revolved around the colonizers. That is to say, this handful of forces, I say handful, but I'm talking about whole countries whose existence requires this alien and hostile power and authority over the lives of people other than themselves. So England, of course, was the great colonial power called the empire upon which the sun never set. That was up until the 1940s, at which time the United States became the big dog, the primary colonizer. But the system that existed everywhere was still a colonial system. So that even when England lost its power, lost its glow, etc., the colonial system continued to exist. And now the ball has been handed off to the United States. And so the United States is the big dog. It's the primary power. But here's what we have. So we have a world that's comprised of parasites who live at the expense of a host. The parasite is the colonizer. The colonizer is the big dog. And when people talk about how we're looking at a situation where the 1% is exploiting everybody else, yeah, there's a 1% that's the big dog. That's sort of like the queen bee, if you will. But all the other bees or all the other ants, however, are loyal to and contribute to that existence and benefit from it. And all of them will attack any intrusion to the domain of the queen bee. And so here is what happens when all of us are confronted as colonized people who are victims of the colonizer, whose blood goes to supply the vampirish colonizer. All of us, represent a threat to the extent that we try to move from that relationship. And all of us are being sucked dry, our blood's being sucked on a daily basis. So you've got this system set up, and it's under stress now because people around the world are fighting back and trying to take back their resources. This leads to this attack on colonized peoples all around the world. This is why they want to attack Venezuela. This is why they want to starve Venezuela, make Venezuela a willing supplicant, to make Venezuela, that land, that country, willingly continue to be a host to the parasitic bloodsucking of U.S. in particular imperialism, U.S. colonial domination. That's what we're looking at. See, all around the world, anything that tries to break up that relationship is what's been the thing that has led to wars and more wars, etc. Then this setup has been there since the 1940s, the way it functions under this particular leadership that we call the Atlanticists. They're called Atlanticists because they're the ones who created the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. They're the ones that define this relationship as existing with white people who on the Atlantic side of the world. And they're the ones who created the United Nations. They're the ones who created the basic trade relations and world courts and all this stuff that has dominated the world for the longest period of time at our expense. Not just our expense as Africans, but the expense of other peoples around the world. And every struggle that we've been involved in ultimately has been a struggle that deals with that relationship. And so here you have white people who are severely affected by this relationship. And what we saw was that it was to such an extent. And of course, they are not affected in the same way all across the board. There are sectors of the white population that's been hit harder than others, depending on whether the economy is centered, in fact, that you live in a capitalist system that's producing not because that people need something in a particular place, but because they can make money because of profit. That's the primary motive. So you got these white people who are experiencing the capitalism that came from our enslavement. They're sitting on top of our enslavement, but now there are contradictions growing between them because the system does not treat them fairly. That is, the system of that rests on our back, sucks our blood, is not treating them fairly. We always say that on January 6th, you had all these white people who attacked the state. The U.S. colonial state came under attack on January 6th, but Africans live under attack by the state all the time. The January 6th saw these white people attack the American government. But the American government attacks African people and other oppressed peoples all the time. So we don't have the same reaction, or we shouldn't have the same reaction to the fact that the colonizer's government has come under attack. If that's the government that represents colonialism, the fact that it comes under attack is not something that should frighten us. We should understand it, and we should understand some things about what it is that we have to do. But this government and the whole system is in a very shaky place. When I say the whole system, I'm talking about the global capitalist system is in a very shaky place. And I say it's in a shaky place because the US has been the centerpiece to this entire arrangement that's connected countries and governments all around the world. And this centerpiece has been under assault for a long time. And then obviously by oppressed peoples around the world fighting for liberation. That includes one time China. That includes Vietnam. That includes, which was a critical historical moment, what the Vietnamese people did that really helped to develop the whole anti-colonial struggle globally and show the power of the people. Cuba and these other forces were a part of this process that's been shaking up the foundation of this whole system. And so now you've got numbers of white people who are affected by this. And they are people who normally benefit from the blood sucking that the United States does. Now, if the United States can't suck as much blood as efficiently and distribute it among the white population, then this sector of the white population is getting left out from what it used to have. It wants America to be great again. It wants America to be white again, because it's America's whiteness, its great whiteness is what has enveloped most of the world, and increasingly that stuff is not holding up anymore. And that was before January 6th. And so that's what we're looking at now. And we're looking at white people responding to that. We're looking at the despair that's been experienced by white people. The United States is no longer what it used to be. It can't feed the white people anymore. All around this country, there are miles and long cars that's lining up to try to get food. And this includes the noble white people who never would consider doing this, certainly publicly, in the past. That's a real downcome, because that puts the white people in this country more or less on the same level of other starving and oppressed people in this country. And they have a part of what whiteness means is that they're not like the rest of us. They are better than the rest of us. And so that's a hit too on the morale of the entire white population. And this notion of making America great again is making America white again, making America in charge of the world again, take care of the Mexicans whose land has been stolen. When I say take care of them, the thing is that they have to be crushed. They have to be denied entry into this land mass, which is a land mass that was taken from them by the United States government as the settler colonial imperial power that it is. So this is the arrangement. And now the US government is facing with a real serious issue. The ruling class is faced with a real serious issue, because they've got the fact that you had thousands of white people come from all around the country, many of them cops, many of them in the military. The military is now searching to find out how many of them were involved. That is to say, that people who were a part of the military involved in what just happened. So this is a part of what is occurring. And it's such a serious thing that the Joint Chiefs of Staff were forced to come out with a statement to tell the world and tell people inside the United States that we loyal. We are loyal, that we support the decisions about Biden, and that we were never involved in this kind of stuff. And we're searching our ranks to see if there was anybody involved. That's a serious statement where the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that is to say, this is the organization of the leaders of every sector of the US military, have to come out and make that statement. It's because they have to do it, first of all, to let the Congress know, to let the Congress know that they're on the right side of the question, or to say they're on the right side of the question. You have to convince the Congress that they were not a part of what Trump just tried to do. So that's one aspect of it. And then another aspect, of course, is to convince the peoples around the world that this is the case. But otherwise, people have the opportunity and the willingness to see the United States as just one of these shaky republics that the United States has denounced historically for the longest period of time, and all the civilized white governments have done the same thing. So they have to say this is not the case, that the structures of what they characterize as their democracy, those structures are strong and backed up by the military. And this is a really interesting kind of contradiction that they've had to do. You've had, when they're talking about, first they wanted to use Article 25, that is to say the 25th Amendment of the US Constitution, that will give them the ability to get Trump removed from office because he's unfit to govern. This would have required support or help from Vice President Mike Pence, who, by the way, was the sleeper, the bourgeois sleeper in the Trump administration. The guy who would have taken over when initially they looked like they might have been successful in getting rid of Trump, something they've been trying to do since he first walked into the White House. And Pence was the guy who was going to be there. And if they got rid of Trump, then he was going to ascend to the presidency and protect the interests of the ruling class. And so now Pence was the guy now who Trump has denounced, cussed him out, et cetera, on Wednesday, January 6th, the day the Capitol was attacked. Pence is the guy who was called on he would have to invoke the 25th Amendment and have it voted on by the cabinet. And if the cabinet agreed, only if Pence introduced it, then they could move toward removing Trump in that fashion. The other way, of course, is what's happening now, the impeachment. And the reason that they're having to grapple with this and why it's a political problem and a hot potato for them is because what Trump did was demonstrate the ability to mobilize all those white people to the extent that they could hit the Capitol, and if they had wanted to, could have, and had been better coordinated and better organized, could have shut it down, could have taken over the government. And so now Trump has demonstrated that he's got that kind of loyalty from white people in this country, that just simply getting rid of him could be problematic because he's not going to go anywhere. He's going to be out there and possibly even run 2024. So how to neutralize this guy on the one hand, while at the same time not feeding into this mass of white people who are his followers. Of course, what you do in part is cut him off from social media, the same way they do us all the time. Cut him off from social media. That's one of the things that you do. And then, of course, what you can do is have him kicked out of the presidency on the 25th Amendment, or you can impeach him and use both of those methods as means of guaranteeing that he can't run for office again. And therefore, perhaps have the ability to pull all of this mass of white people into, keep them in his embrace and provide leadership for them. So that's a struggle that they were involved in, how to do that without getting these people upset on the one hand, but knowing that they had to do it. They had to do something. And so the FBI is running around the country, it says, rounding up hundreds of people, that kind of thing. But the question of Trump is still there. How to deal with Trump is still there. Whether the Congress will be able to do it, they keep announcing more Republicans who say they are they're down with being able to impeach Trump. Even Mitch McConnell, his loyal lapdog out of Kentucky, has said that he won't oppose it. He's down. He's glad that the impeachment thing is happening. He's the one who opened up the Senate for the impeachment trial to begin on today. That may be very well going on at this very moment. So this is where they are, how to get rid of this problem that they've got and maintain some kind of stability in the country. And so we've seen, as I mentioned, a growing number of congressional Republicans who are supporting the impeachment. Even Mitch McConnell is pleased with the impeachment push. The Joint Chiefs of Staff condemned the riot and vowed their loyalty to the government, to the system. The House Democrats have moved to reprimand Republicans for their participation in fomenting the riot, and that more than 100 and some odd of them they're talking about. And they're pushing forth resolutions that could even reprimand various congressmen like Hawley and Cruz and those who came out who initially saying that they rejected Biden's presidency. This is the kind of stuff that's happening. Then a lot of corporations have suspended donations to the 147 Republican Congresspeople who objected to the certification of the Biden presidency. This is part of what's going on. Part of what's going on is that they are talking about the possibility that there are in every state, all of the 50 states, there are going to be attacks on state houses by the same forces connected to what just happened on January 6th. And they've attributed that to some reactionary white group that's out there, but that's what's going on. That's the thing. And you don't know why they're saying that. You don't know if this is how real this is, or whether or not this is they're motivated by the need again to show how dangerous Trump is to push people to vote impeachment and to keep him out from any lever of power that might come to him otherwise. So this is part of what we're looking at. And I know that a lot of you are afraid. A lot of our people are afraid. Not you. I know it's not you, but a lot of our people are afraid right now, uncertain, not knowing what to make of this, And part of the reason for the fear is because most of us are connected. If we are politically connected, we're either connected to do-nothing kinds of organizations out there, or we are connected politically to the Democratic Party as our own means by which we look for solutions. We are connected to something other than our own capacity, our own ability. And that's normal, natural. People want to have the future in their own hands. They need to have some sense of that, especially during dangerous times. You want to be secure, have a sense of security, and your greatest sense of security, of course, is when the future is in our hands, your hands, etc. And that's what we're looking at today. So what I'm saying is this. The American government is not your friend, never has been your friend, never will be your friend. Forget it, forget it, forget it. I don't care how many Kamala Harrises, I don't care how many Michelle and Baracks that show up. The American government, even when there's a Kamala Harris or Michelle and Barack Hussein Obama on the scene, even when your local senator or your local city council person is on the scene. African people in this country and around the world continue to catch hell from the American government in the form of the police department, catch hell from the American government who kicks us out of our homes and things like that, who will not allow us to be employed, who will initiate policies about everything except our being able to live a decent kind of life. That's the American government. That's not Trump. You can't act like this started when Trump went into office, or this started on January 6th when all that mob of white people attacked the government that attacks you all the time. You can't act like that's the case. It's the American government. It's not our friend. It's opposed to our interests. And only people who want to keep you bamboozled and keep you tied to the American government that makes you so vulnerable, those are the only people who continue to preach that despite all the evidence that you see that shows you that's not real. That's the American government. And what I'm saying is that there have been those of us who've been in this country and around the world, African people who suffer colonialism and who have consistently tried to show the way, to pave the way so that we are not dependent on any white power at all, that we control our own lives, that as opposed to trying to find a way to get this white group or that white government to support me, we have to strike out for our own power, for our own independence, for our own capacity to feed and clothe ourselves. This is what we have to do. And people who, in the face of what we know, historically, this government has done to us, try to keep us locked in with the government, whether they call themselves Democrats or whether they call themselves social Democrats or whatever the hell it is they call themselves, whether they call themselves being slick because now they know how to play the game. And so instead of just giving all our power to one party, we're going to give it to Republicans parties as well. As long as we are reliant on that government, as long as that we are not involved in constructing our own independent anti-colonial power, we're going to be excited and nervous about what the hell is happening when we see this war that's happening between white powers and white people and the government in this country. So I want to say that as the chairman of the African People's Social Party, I've been involved, for about 50 years in this struggle to complete this revolution that was begun by people like Garvey, by people like Malcolm X, by people like Nkrumah, by people like Lumumba from Congo, like people like Che Guevara, to change this world, because we don't have to tolerate this world. If you look at what you're talking about now, you're talking about individual white people who are making decisions about how we should live. These are colonizers. We have to assume responsibility to make this decision for ourselves. That's what Malcolm was talking about. That's what Garvey was talking about, Lumumba and Nkrumah, Guevara, and the courageous people of Vietnam and Cuba, saying that we have to take back our own power as a people. That's what the African People's Socialist Party has been involved in constructing now for 50 years or so. I want to say that you should join this process, because this is no guarantee that on next week or tomorrow how the Congress is going to vote for impeachment or not. This is a statement. It doesn't matter how they vote. In the final analysis, no matter how they vote, they still got the power. I was telling somebody the other day just about Nat Turner, who in 1831 had led this incredible revolt in Hampton, Virginia. And after they killed a lot of white people, slave owners, which is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to kill people who are slave owners. And you're supposed to destroy the system of slavery. And so he was captured sometime later, and he was put on trial. Nat Turner was put on trial by the US government. And they tried him and they found him guilty. There was one or two other persons who they didn't find guilty. But the point is this: if they had found Nat Turner not guilty, the system of slavery still would have existed. The point wasn't whether they found him guilty or not through the system of slavery. The point is the existence of slavery in the first place that can define your guilt, your innocence. And this is what we are stuck with right now in terms of looking at what's happening in this country and whether or not Biden and Harris are going to be good for us or good to us or what have you. They will, if they can, perhaps. They will, if it meets their interest to do so. They will show some pity and mercy possibly on us, but possibly none of that's going to happen. Possibly the next mob of white people that attack the White House will succeed or will attack the White House as opposed to simply successfully attacking the US Capitol as they have done. So we have to have our own power. That's all there is to it. I can't say that once you unite with this party or with the Uhuru movement, everything's going to be hunky-dory, so to speak, fine and dandy. That I'm not saying that. I'm saying we got to get off this treadmill. And I know that you work hard in America, and I know you work hard for the Democratic Party or some other kind of process for to get your rights, etc., under colonialism. But it's like being on a treadmill. It doesn't matter how fast you have the treadmill going. You can run till you sweat, till you pass out, but the fact is you're still not going anywhere. And that's what we've been on now, this treadmill. And they don't want us to get off this treadmill. That's why they would kill Malcolm. That's why they would kill King. That's why they would kill all those other people who tried to take us off the treadmill and give us the ability to get rid of it in real struggle in our own interests. So that I'm calling you to get off the treadmill is what I'm saying. And no, I can't even tell you, not only that joining this movement or trying to, because everybody who wants to can't, join this party is going to make all the difference in the world. It may not make all the difference in the world. I can't even promise you that there's a drink of water at the end of the marathon. But I can tell you that the only thing that we can look forward to, if you don't come on board, if you don't join this process, is more misery, more uncertainty, more death and destruction at the hand of a social system that came into existence of enslaving you and your grandmama. This system has no empathy, has no capacity for justice that we call for. The only time this system will know justice is when we impose that justice on them. Justice for the slave is a different thing than justice for the slave master. And what world needs now is justice for those of us who've been enslaved. And that will come at the expense of the life, liberty, and well-being of the slave master. So I'm not just telling you something that's mysterious or asking you to believe in the possible emergence of some mysterious school or some other kind of thing that might happen one day in the future. I'm talking concrete business to you. I'm talking about Africans, comrades, that we in the African People's Socialist Party have been involved for a long time in constructing a revolutionary project that will make us independent and free. That if you just go to St. Louis and look at the remarkable struggles that we've been involved in, where we've transformed much of the north side of St. Louis that's been under common assault for the longest period of time, that's driven more and more Africans out of the community, that's stolen properties from our people and put them in the so-called land bank, that's managed to be able to give the property stolen from African people who've been pushed out of St. Louis to give this property to rich developers. We are in that struggle to stop that and to take those properties and make it possible for the African community to have control of those properties. In doing so, we even have to fight against African middle class, petty bourgeois people who are in office now who are protecting the status quo because they get paid to do it, because they get a check to do it, because they can anticipate at some time in their history they'll be able to retire off doing it at the expense of our people. So we do economic development. There are more than 50 some odd economic enterprises of small and medium size that we have been creating. And we've created these institutions as the beginning, as the incipient initiation, the initiation of an independent African anti-colonial economy that was stretched across the globe. That's what we're doing. Check it out. You can go to apspuhuru.org, apspuhuru.org. You can see that. That's what we're doing. And you can see that we have a couple of furniture stores. And you can see that we have a bakery capacity. I mean, a commercial kitchen where on one day, just a couple of weeks ago, we made and sold something like 1,000 pies. That was over in the Bay Area of California. This is what we do concretely. And the pies, none of this goes to any individual. These are resources that go to building resources, to creating institutions and things like that, that will be able to hire our own people. that will be able to confer some dignity on people in the community, even if you can't get a job, to pass by some place that you know is functioning in the interest of African people and sets an example of what's possible for you. That's what we do. And we work on 1,000 different ways. We got 2 candidates running for office in St. Louis, Comrade Herdosia Kalambai and Danette, running for election in Ward 3. And this is something that a whole couple of generations of Negroes have held office in that particular seat. And they haven't done anything that advance the interests of our people, of our people, of our people. That's the question. They contribute to reducing political life and political discussion in St. Louis around personalities, whether you like somebody, don't like somebody, to keep the political questions from surfacing and to train the African people not to be able to listen to the political discussions that deal around their life and death issues. There's Comrade T'Chawa Masimba, who's running for alderperson election in Ward 21. And he's running a serious campaign against somebody who's locked, who has a lip lock on some of the most embarrassing parts of the body parts of white power. And he's running a fantastic campaign against this guy who stood and blocked the ability from his office as an alderperson in this ward, blocked the ability for African people to get the kinds of resources that will allow us to make economic development happen more effectively there. They got an election coming up, and you should support it. You should go to vote Kalambai. That's KALAMBAYI.org. VoteKalambai.org. You should go to VoteMasimba.org and do whatever you can to support these campaigns. We have to support Charles Barron in New York, who is going to be running again for city council in New York, because the guns are pointed toward these. These are people who have heroically stood up for the interests of African people and took the question of what Black people need and oppressed people need right into the halls of the government. So you got this mob in Washington, D.C., white people who attacked the Capitol there. That's a mob of white people to try to make the government go one way, and then you have an opportunity to do something, at least to keep some of our own people in place that can contribute to the direction that you want the government to go to. So Charles Barron should be supported. You should know that coming up, their party, our party, African People's Socialist Party, has organized several Black Power summits in different places around the world, regions of the world. There's one that's going to be happening in Africa, and that's going to be happening out of Ghana. And these campaigns, these summits begin on the 13th, I think it is, on the 14th of this month. You can go to, again, apspuhutu.org, and you can get the information exactly when it is happening. But there's a Black Power Summit that's going to be happening in the Caribbean. It's going to be located in the Bahamas. And we know that people will be presenting, not only from Bahamas, but from other places like Bermuda and other places, even French-speaking parts of the Bahamas will be there, talking about how we have to get organized and pull together our resources as a people all over the globe to win freedom. So this is something that's going to be happening around the world. I know that there are going to be some people, Africans, who are opposed to this, but I want to tell you that on January 17th, the Caribbean Black Power Summit will be happening at 10 a.m. On that same day on the 17th at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. A Black Power Summit will be happening out of Oakland, California. On January 23rd at 9 a.m. British time, there's going to be a Black Power Summit hosted from London, England. In the southern region of the United States, a Black Power Summit happened on January 23rd It's going to be hosted out of Huntsville, Alabama, on the Africa Black Power Summit will be happening on January 24th, hosted in South Africa, and the Northern region, US region Black Power Summit will also be happening on the 24th, hosted out of Philadelphia. And then there's the Midwest region Black Power Summit will be held in St. Louis, Missouri, with people from Wichita and people from Indiana and people from Chicago, Illinois, etc. So you should come out. And I know I've said enough that reminds you that we have some opponents even from the African community at a time like this. Because there are some people who are so afraid they cannot turn white power colonialism loose. And I want to just share this with you. This is from a 1963 speech that was made by Malcolm X. And he talks about the difference in the house Negro and the field Negro. And he said there was two kinds of slaves back during slavery. There was the house Negro and the field Negro. The house Negroes, they lived in the house with master. They dressed pretty good and they ate good because they ate his food, what he left. They lived in the attic or the basement, but still they lived near the master. And they loved their master more than the master loved himself. They would give their life to save the master's house quicker than the master would. The house Negro, if the master said, we got a good house here, the house Negro would say, yeah, we got a good house here. Whenever the master said we, he said we. That's how you can tell a house Negro. If the master's house caught on fire, the house Negro would fight harder to put the blaze out than the master would. If the master got sick, the house Negro would say, what's the matter, boss? We sick? We sick. He identified himself with his master more than his master identified with himself. And if you came up to the house Negro and said, let's run away, let's escape, let's separate, the house Negro would look at you and say, man, you're crazy. Where can I wear better clothes than this? Where can I find a better house than this? Where can I eat better food than this? That was the house Negro. He said in those days, he was called a house nigger. And that's what we call him today because we got some house niggas running around here. He said this modern house Negro loves his master. He wants to live near his master. And then he brags, I'm the only Negro out here. I'm the only one on my job. I'm the only one in this school. You're nothing but a house Negro. And if someone comes to you right now and says, let's separate, you say the same thing that the house Negro said on the plantation. What you mean, separate from America? This good white man? Where are you gonna get a better job than you get here? I mean, that's what you say. Anyway, he said on that same plantation, there was a field Negro. The field Negro, those were the masses. There was always more Negroes in the field than there was the Negroes in the house. The Negroes in the field caught hell. He ate leftovers. In the house, they ate high up on the hog. The Negro in the field didn't get nothing but what was left of the insides of the hog. They call them chitlers nowadays. In those days, they called them what they were, guts. That's what you were, a gut eater. And some of you are still gut eaters. Said the field Negro was beaten from morning to night. He lived in a shack, in a hut. He wore old cast-off clothes. He hated his master. I say he hated his master. He was intelligent. That house Negro loved his master, but that field Negro, remember, they were in the majority and they hated the master. When the house caught on fire, he didn't try to put it out. That field Negro played for a wind, a breeze. And as we said, the roof is on fire. The roof is on fire. We don't need no water. As the lyrics in that song, hip hop song go, we don't need no water, let the MF burn. And what we do need is our own Black power. And I'm offering you an opportunity to step forward to that. You should go to apspuhuru.org, apspuhuru.org. I'm looking to hear from you. Let's take a step forward for our freedom, for our liberation. It's not gonna happen tomorrow, I know that. But what can happen is that we begin this road so that whenever it happens, we'll be prepared. And what we do today will make it happen much earlier than if we did nothing. So I want to thank all of you for coming to this discussion. I know I've gone considerably longer than I traditionally do, and I hope that it won't prevent you from coming back. We're going to have to keep talking about this because we still got this problem and we got to get out of it. And I want to say again, the roof is on fire. So let's go and build our own house. Let's take our resources, connect our people around the world, and build a future, have enough courage to build our future, to strike out from being connected to a slave master, to a terrorist around the world. Uhuru.